it means that the user is created directly on Blackboard, or we can use other type of authentication. And let me show you one example, which is one of your requests, is the integration with the G Suite, the Google Suite. This is another server, another demo server. And here, let me just make this a little bit bigger for you can see. We can configure different kinds of authentication, including the Google Suite for Education and the Office 365. Okay, so we can manage the authentication for either one of those groups. In your case, I believe it's more interesting the part of the G Suite. Okay, so basically the user have username and password created on the G Suite, and once you are authenticated, you already have access to other services from this provider, right? So signing in, we will see the first page of Blackboard, and this landing page is configurable by the institution. In this case, the first page that the user see is the institution page. The institution page is a place where you can provide different kind of information to different group of people. So, for instance, if I am an instructor, I can see just a couple of modules or information. Okay. If I am a staff, a person that work on the institution, but I'm not a teacher, I can have different information over here. If I am a student for initial grades, I will have another set of information. If I'm a senior student, I will have other kind of information. And this is what we call multi-branding. So we can have for all those different groups of people, different logo marks or different images. On here on the left side, when you say Blackboard, we can change that that logo for other images, as well the banner up in the top of the page, and the text, of course, and the content itself of each one of those modules. Okay, so it's a good way to provide personalized experience to different groups of people, instructors, students, seniors, or initial series, staff, and so on and so forth. Okay, so we have this possibility to have different look and feels or different experience inside the platform. In addition to that, we can also provide different URLs for those different groups. So for instance, if you want to have one entry point or one URL for one group of people, so K-12 for instance, we can provide different URLs for those groups. Okay. We also have a profile page. This is the personal profile page, and here you can see you can change your language, change your full name, change your email address if the institution decides that this is available for change. We often deal with integrations between systems. So maybe it's not interesting that your student change your password because it is in your student information system, for example. So we can block this the editing of the sensitive information for your students, if you like. And as well, the language here, we have the same 4 languages in the first screen. Right? Spanish, French, Portuguese, and English. And the user can change that on a system level, okay? But the admin is the person who dictates, for instance, the language on the course level. And we'll see this in a minute. In addition to that, just to talk about the Google Suite again, we have native integrations with the storage services, cloud services, storage cloud services. We can connect to OneDrive for Business, Dropbox, and other providers. Let me show you right here. We can connect with Box, Dropbox, Google Drive, OneDrive, and OneDrive for Business. the SharePoint as well. Okay, so you can manage different storages on the same account, just to make the okay, so it's the same idea of the timeline that we find in Facebook or Twitter. The idea here is to show you and bring to your attention any kind of activity that have a close due date. For instance, this lockdown browser activity that has the due date for tomorrow. All those I have to tomorrow. I have a couple of activities that are already expired or out of date. I have some information that was added today on my courses. So I have all the information, information like insertion of content, publication or post of grades, new posts on discussions. All this will reflect on my activity stream. Okay? So I can keep up with all the important things that are happening in my course. Okay? We will jump courses and organizations to later on. Talking about the calendar is one-stop shop for knowing the the level of work that you have on a month, on a week, or in a daily basis. Okay, so in a monthly view, you'll see all the work or activities that you have that have a due date on that part. On my side, as I'm a instructor, I don't have due dates, but for the student, it will be reflect all the due dates, all work that need to be done in certain times. Okay, and you can, let's say, integrate your external calendar into Blackboard, or you can integrate the Blackboard calendar in an external calendar. So it's a double-way communication. Okay? You can integrate iCal, Google Calendar, talking about the G Suite, or the calendar for the iOS operating system. Okay? So different resources and features to keep your activities synced and trying to make your life a little bit easier, especially in those quarantine times. Right? Keep up with all the work that needs to be done. Messages. Here you have all the messages in all the courses that you are enrolled at this time. You can see that I have a lot of demo courses that I'm enrolled. And the idea here is to present to you all new messages and provide you a quick way to communicate with your instructors and colleagues on each one of the courses that you have some kind of work or interaction. The same idea is with grades. On this page, outside of the course level, you have all your grades for all the courses. Okay, and if you want to see one course in particular, let's see, maybe this one. Let me find my course. So it's a good way for the instructor, for instance, to know if they have work to do, because it indicates to you all the activity there are lacking of work. Okay, and it's again one-stop shop for grade and grading assignments. Okay, tools we'll check that in more detail, most for the end of the presentation, because I want to show you some dashboards related to the competency-based education framework that we have in Blackboard. Okay, and at least the admin panel, as instructors, you will not see it, but it is all the back end actions and activities are done via the admin path. Okay. So the list of courses. In courses, you can see all the courses that you are enrolled as instructor or as a student. We have different categories of courses. We can also work with different terms. If your institution use the logic of terms, we can manage to create that and organize it better for your students. And we have a search field where you can, if you have a long list of courses and you want to access one very quick, you just start typing and will filter all the results. Okay, so a quick way to find what you need to access. We will be using Sandbox course as a model. Okay, and again, I have some content in Spanish and Portuguese, so don't mind the content itself, but you can see that all the interface is in English. Okay, as an admin, I can change all this information to any language supported by the platform. Okay, today we support over 23 different languages. So in this case, we are working with English. One important point to talk about is the accessibility. So we have a philosophy to design solutions that are accessible in any kind of device. You can see that I'm using a big screen right now, but if I simulate that I am using perhaps an iPad screen, right? You can see that the platform will adapt and adjust those tools to fit on that screen. Okay, if I keep resizing the screen for a smartphone size, for instance, you can see that again all the content is converted. Okay, it fits perfectly on the screen. Of course, that your content also need to be accessible and responsive to a better experience. Okay, so for instance, videos, images, it's best practice to use vector images or different flavors of video or different extensions of video for different kinds of devices. Okay, so Blackboard at this point 100% responsive. You can access to via desktop, mobile phones, and if you'd like to have apps in your device, specific point, and the content that you will create will get right on that spot. Okay. Let's check a little bit the options that we have here. You can copy content from other courses that you are enrolled as an instructor. So if you have the same course delivered in different terms, and you receive a blank course, just a course shell with no content, and you want to reuse the content from the last version, the last term, you just go click and copy content. It will present a list of all the courses that you are enrolled, and you can just start selecting which courses you want to use. So for instance, I will select this course. Let's see. And I'll say, okay, I want to copy all those resources. Okay, just check the boxes, click on copy course, and it will make a brand new copy on your course. Okay, reminding that you need to be an instructor on the courses that you want to copy the content from. Okay. You can, of course, upload files directly from your computer to the platform. You can leverage content providers. So for instance, McGraw-Hill, Pearson, other publishers have integrations with us. So if you have some contract with those publishers, you can access their content directly inside Blackboard. And to do that, we use an integration standard called LTI, Learning Tools Interoperability. It's basically a username and a password, and it will give you access to your content directly inside our LMS. Okay? You can use the cloud storage services that we just saw a minute ago. So Google Drive, Dropbox, Box, OneDrive, and so on. And you can use the content collection that is our own storage service inside the LMS. So Blackboard is an LMS and a CMS, a content management system as well. And you can use any of those options to create your content. Plus, on this create section, you have a couple of more options. We know that the pedagogy that you want to use are different depending on the public and the kind of instruction that you want to deliver. You can use different pedagogical approaches. So we have a lot of different tools to approach either of those pedagogical methods. You can create learning modules, which are collections of content that you can say, okay, the student can access the second file just after access the first file. It's a sequential instruction, meaning that the student needs to go to the file number 1, number 2, 3, 4, and so on. They cannot jump to file 1 to 6 to 2 and 5. So it's a way for you to guide the study of the student. This is an option. You can click it and say, this will be a sequential module, or you can give more openness to the student and let them explore the content as they will. Okay. The folder is just a folder where you can add content. Okay, pretty simple. The document is a page of content where you can add any kind of information like text, videos, images, web links, files. Okay? It's just a blank screen where you can build your course and use the instructional design that you decide is better for your public and your group of students. We can use, of course, web links. We can have different integrations with teaching tools via LTI. So we can have here, again, as an example, the publishers are a good example. We can use as well SCORM packages. They're basically zip files. It contains a collection of content. And on the assessment section, we have tests, assignments, and for participation, collaboration, and engagement, the discussion forums. Okay, so let's check a little bit assessments and talk about the tests, which is one of the most used resources in Blackboard and by instructors. So here, what we can do is create an assessment. Let's put a name. Let's say new assessment. It will be visible to the students. And again, you have the plus sign, you can add some things. Let's see what we can add at this point. So we can manage question pools and different kind of questions. Okay, so formulated questions, open questions, multiple choice, true or false, and we can reuse questions that was already used in our courses. So we can manage different kind of approaches. We can create questions from scratch, or we can reuse them using the question pool of question banks, right? On the right-hand side, we have some configurations, and I will open this this config panel for us to see all the options. And here we have some important ones, like the due date. Okay, so you expect the students to answer this test on a certain date. You can just change that, or type on a specific date. Let's say 5 of May, and a time. As a communication resource, you can allow class conversations. Class conversations are more informal ways to build knowledge. It's a space where students can talk about the content itself. So for instance, if you have a PDF file, a reading that the student need to do, and you left the conversation open, you can see students start to talk about, well, on that section of the text, I like how the author talked about this topic, and the students can start to grow just like a more informal discussion forum. This is totally informal. It's not gradable. It's not a tracking of knowledge, but it's more engagement and adoption strategy for students. Okay. If you have questions, you can randomize the questions and randomize the answers. So multiple choice questions, you often would like to change the position of the answers and the questions itself. You can do that through here. You can collect submissions for offline work. So for instance, if you are teaching a face-to-face class and you say to your students, okay, so for next week, you need to do a critical resume for this chapter of the book, and you will deliver that on Blackboard. Okay, it's not a, let's say, a online assessment, but it's delivered online. Okay, so grading, you have the number of attempts permitted for your students, which attempt will be graded, the maximum points. Okay, we can use anonymous grading if you have this kind of strategy inside your institution. We can add a limit. So for instance, if I have an assessment, I have 10 questions, and I will give 10 minutes for the students to answer that test. And I can say, okay, once the time runs out, the work is automatically sent, or you can provide an extra time for students to send this test. And you can manage to have, let's say, some partial credit for the students that took an extra time. Okay. More common to see is you have 10 minutes. Once the time's run out, your test is saved and delivered to the platform, right? You can add and use grading rubrics for your assessments. This is pretty much I see a lot of institutions using that on discussion forums, and sorry about this is in Spanish, but you can have an idea on how a rubric is created, right? It's basically a matrix where you can define some criteria for evaluation and the level of proficiency on each one of those criteria. Interesting thing, you can align, let's say, learning goals or competencies inside each one of those criteria. So if you have a map of competency-based education in your institution, and you have this map on your content and courses, you can leverage the framework that we have in Blackboard to start assess and evaluate the level of proficiency on each one of your students. Okay, you can use that on rubrics, on questions, on discussion forums, and any content that is gradable. Okay? Here is the option to align the goals with this particular test. We can use Safe Assign, which is a solution from Blackboard that access your students' answers and check if there is some probability of plagiarism from any content from the internet. And we'll see that working in a minute when we jump to grading. Okay, this is already included in the platform. This is not a third-party solution. This is from Blackboard core solution. And one of the points that you put in on the requirements, the lockdown browser. We have lockdown browser integrated into Blackboard via LTI, and important to know to say that lockdown browser is not a Blackboard solution. It is a Respondus solution. It's a technological partner from Blackboard, and we have totally the possibility to integrate with Learn Ultra, and this is how it gets presented to the instructor. So you can click on lockdown browser, and if you want to use that solution, of course you need to have the license for it, and you just make your configuration. So we are working with the new assessment, and I will say that in the new assessment it requires the lockdown browser to be active, right? This is the configuration for lockdown browser in assessments. Right. Once you have all the configuration done, you hit save, and your assessment is created. One last point on creating assessment: if you have open questions or essay questions, and you enable Safe Assign will also grab the answers from the texts inserted directly in the platform, and as well from the files that the student uploads as an answer for this particular assessment. Right. Regarding the creation of content, we also know that collaboration is an important part of that. And to comply with collaboration, I will talk about two different approaches. One is the asynchronous approach with the discussion forums, where you can provide an area to open and freely discussion of different matters and topics that you decide is important to your class. And you can grade the forums or not. This is an instructor decision, right? Again, if you have new forums and you say that the forum is gradable, you can use rubrics, you can assign with competencies, you can assign to different groups, and you have basically two different ways to present the discussion. The first one is the more traditional one, when you have a header that presents the topic of discussion, and the students can see all the posts at once. Or you can say that the students need to first make their own post on the forum for them to see the contributions of their colleagues. So if you decide to grade a forum, it may be interesting to use the post first option, because you assure that the students are creating original thinking and original posts, and not just recollecting a lot of ideas from their colleagues and build their own posts as a collage of different thoughts. Okay. And for the synchronous part of collaboration, we have the Blackboard Collaborate solution, which is totally integrated with the LMS. Blackboard Collaborate is just the solution we are using right now to make this call happen. Okay, so it's a web conferencing solution designed for education. And one thing that you can see is that the easy of use and how friendly the interface is, it's a very good differentiator and is a good adoption feature for instructors and students. So first thing, you go to the course, you need to do some online interaction, some synchronous interaction. You just click on your course room. The Collaborate already knows if you are an instructor or a student and give you the correct permissions as your role. Okay, and here we can manage to share audio, as I'm doing right now, video, as a couple of folks did on the beginning of the session. We can use this raise hand option. So if you have questions, you need to call some attention from the instructor, you just raise hand and the instructor hear a sound on the session that he's working on. With Collaborate, you can use the chat as you used in the beginning of the call as well. As an instructor, I can see a list of all the participants. Of course, on this session, it's empty, it's just me on the session. But on our particular meeting, we have currently 24 people connected. I can share different kind of content. So I can share a whiteboard where I can draw and make some point or help with the discussion. I can share my screen as I'm doing right now. You can see all I'm doing on my screen. I can share files such as PDFs, PowerPoint files, images. Okay, I can do instant surveys with the group connected on the session. So, for instance, if I would ask you which kind of content is the more common on your course, and I put there Word documents, PDF documents, PowerPoint documents, and you can select an answer, and I can have a better idea of how you use your content, right? And we can do group work inside Collaborate. So we can emulate a face-to-face class in a pretty good way using Collaborate. One kind of activity that is pretty common in face-to-face classes is the instructor divides the group in a X number of smaller groups, give them an assignment, and say, okay, you have 40 minutes to think in a solution for this challenge, and at the end of the class, we will join the whole group and you will present that solution that you found. We can do exactly the same situation here in Collaborate using the breakout groups. Okay. Right, and as we are doing right now on our session, we can record everything that we do on a particular session. And the good thing for the integration is that once you execute a session and you record it, when this session is over, all the recordings get automatically available on your Blackboard course. You don't have to do anything. You don't have to send any kind of request. You don't have to copy and paste links with the recording. You can have all the recordings available in your course. And if a particular student was not able to join the live session, they can just click on the recording and watch it right on your course. Okay, so no student left behind, synchronous or asynchronous. Okay, good. So those were the main aspects for collaboration. And as we saw briefly, using the discussions and the assessments, we can of course create work groups inside the course shell as well. Okay, so in this case, I think I have 16 students on this course. They are all fake students. Yeah. So I can just create groups here and say, okay, this assignment will be answered by group 1, group 2 will do this assignment, or I can have a bigger challenge, break out in 4 different areas and say, okay, each group will handle 1 area of knowledge for this particular challenge. And at the end, you need to discuss the better way to, let's say, glue all together the answers that you find as a group and present to the instructor. So pretty flexible ways to work in Blackboard, individually or in groups. Okay, so for the last part of collaboration, I just want to show you, we did a quick integration with Google Meet. As you are interested in the G Suite, Google Meet is one of the tools available there. It's as well an online meeting solution. We can integrate this using LTI as well. And basically, you can create a session, and for the student to access it, you just click on the link. Of course, they need to have a Gmail account. On this case, I don't have one, but you just need to click on the link, and it will throw you inside a Google Meet call. Okay, so one way to quickly integrate those resources inside Blackboard. Okay, so content creation, it's pretty much it. I would like to jump to the grading part. So for grading opportunities, we present to the instructor a grade book with 2 basic views. The first one is more like a list and is focused more on the actual gradable activities on this course. So at this point, I have all of those. Each one of the lines is one gradable activity or work that needs to be done by the student. And in one single view, the instructor can see the overall status of the engagement of this group. So on this first activity, I just have 1 grade to publish, to make available to the students. All the other grades are already submitted. I can do it right now, or I can do it later, depending on the policy of the institution. For the discussion, I know that I have 1 entry, 1 student to grade, or meaning I have work to do on this part. On the second discussion forum, I also have 1 grade to analyze. On my assignments, I have 2 work to grade and 1 to post. So I can see that this is the piece of content that I have more work to do. I have 2. I'm lacking 2 grades and 1 publish. So I will click on this particular assignment, and I will see, okay, so in this assignment, I have 2 grades to be done. It's from Alberto, and the other student is Cesar. And I can see that I'm using Safe Assign on this particular assignment. And I can see that the work delivered by Alberto have a high risk. So, okay, let's see what it means. I just click on that icon that says high risk. I can see that Alberto had one attempt on this assignment. I click on that assignment, and I can see what this particular student sent to me as an answer for the assignment. Okay, I can see the file rendering on screen, where I can see I can make some notes. Okay, so this first line, I don't like it. It's better to rewrite. Okay, so I just can publish some comments. And I see that my report from SafeAssign tells me that there is a probability of 70% of plagiarism, which is concerning. So I can access a deeper level of analysis, accessing the SafeAssign report. And it will show me in a color or different colors the areas that I need to focus and decide if it is a copy from content or not. So let's say, okay, this is just a phrase, is a pretty common phrase, is not that relevant from my point of view, but this piece over here, this section, is a whole paragraph, is a lot of text, right? So this is concerning. I can click on that part, on that section, and I can compare the student paper and the original source of the content side by side. And I can see that, interestingly, the phrase is exactly the same. Okay, so this is concerning. It's probably a copy. The student didn't thought on creating that. And I can see, and on this icon, I can access the web page from where that content came from. On this case is Wikipedia, right? And I can, well, have that in mind and say to my student, okay, you did a good job, but there are some parts that need to be rewritten because it's we found similarities with some content in the internet. And SafeAssign gives you all that information. You can share with the student or not. Again, this is an institutional policy that you can put in place as you please. Okay. So once I have the SafeAssign report, I did all the comments that I needed, that I wanted to do for the student. Now it's time to provide him some feedback. And yeah, I can write a lot of comments in the text box, so I can put comments and put a lot of text. But sometimes a video or an audio is a way more efficient to deliver that kind of information. So directly within the platform, the instructor can insert a recording, right? So I will record an audio feedback for this student, and of course you need to have those permitted. Okay, so there we go. And we just use an engine where you can record an audio or a video and attach directly into the student feedback. Okay, is all streamlined as the workflow of the instructors goes along. So students send a file, you can comment, you can see different kind of analysis, and you can provide some feedback to the students. Right? Okay, and finally a grade. So let's say 75, because I will have another option for the student and one more chance to send me those files. Okay, so basically this would be the grading process for this file. But we have a second view on the gradebook, and this second view is more like a matrix, right? you not just have all the work that needs to be delivered by the student, but you can see an overview of each one of the students. In my class, of course, I don't have a lot of students in sending the work, but if this was a real class, it probably would give you an idea that your students are not delivering the work on time, because I have one student that already delivered a couple of work, a couple files, but the most part of them are not interacting. I'm hearing some pops here. Let me check the chat if there is any. Okay, questions. Can you upload a rubric here? Can you create a comment bank? Okay, so rubrics, you can add a rubric on any assignment that you create. Okay, so for instance, let's say this activity here, if I add it when I'm creating those activities, then yes, you can add a rubric. Okay, you will find this option right here in the configuration of the assessment. In this case, I cannot add a rubric because I already have assessment gradable assessments, and the students already interacted with this particular assessment. Okay. So yeah, you can add rubrics on the assessments, create a comment bank. I understand there is like a repository of comments, like good work, good job, keep up with the good work, so such things like that. At this point, we don't have a comment bank available. It is something that there is in our plans to create and deliver in 2020. At this point, right now, we don't have this comment bank, Kate. Does the originality report work within the school, showing if there is a planning in class? Yes. So we have in SafeAssign what we call institutional database. Okay. So once your students start to send files within your server, those files will be inserted, can be inserted on your institutional database, and it will present to you that a particular section of a work is coming from other students' paper. Okay. Paola asked about the customization of the LMS. So yeah, you can do some customization. So let me grab some login page for a couple of clients here. Let's see which one. And again, this can you can choose how to customize. Okay, this is a university in Chile, Universidad San Sebastián. They customize the login page to let's say foster students to download the apps and to use the Office 365 login, right? La Universidad Mayor también de Chile pusieron algo. Disculpa. They did something more simple, more direct. But yeah, you can manage, create different, let's say, experience or look and feel for your own platform. This is part of the implementation project that Blackboard delivers with the platform. Okay. Okay. Well, is there an interface for lower school students that looks and feel age appropriate? Yeah, Polly, it's quite a similar answer. We can make it more friendly, let's say, for infants, for people with very low ages. It's basically the kind of information that you deliver and the way it is delivered to this public. But yeah, we can definitely manage to create a plan on how to better communicate with that public. Okay. Assessment security needs a license for a third party. Sorry, I don't know assessment security. This is but we can check on that particular issue on the end of the presentation. But I don't know what is assessment security is. what is the implications of having different URLs? Can students initiate a video conference among themselves using BB homework assignments? If you create collaborate sessions for individual groups, yes, they can do it. As default, the course room is available to any user. So if the groups decide and organize themselves to have a particular time frame in a week to use the collab room, it's already done. You can use the calendar to make it available to groups, or you can create private collaborate sessions for each one of the groups that you want to create in your course. Okay. What are the implications of having different URLs? The different URLs are, let's say, a strategy that institutions use to make different groups more included on the experience. So, for instance, Department of Nursery have one link with one login page customized for themselves. The business administration business have the department have another URL, a different login page. So it's more, let's say, inclusive in sort of way. Can you send us a look at the lower school? I can try to find one. Let me check on that, and if I can find one, I'll definitely send you some screenshots. No problem. We do bring in your own device to 612. Are there any limitation devices students can work connect on the classes? I will not say limitations. Okay, we have some compliant device operational systems that I can send you the link to, but the most common devices, iOS, Android, even Windows tablets and smartphones are okay. I don't see any further limitations to the kind of device that you can use at this point. Analytics dashboard. Okay, it's the next part of the presentation, Andres. So 1 minute in, we will be there. Is there a mobile app for Blackboard or only a website? So we have native apps for iOS and Android devices. Okay, you can find that on each store, Google Store and Apple Store. Okay, and we have specific apps for students and instructors. Okay, and Kenny, just wondering if there is any app available so that students from their phones. Yes, so that's it. The Blackboard app is dedicated to students, and the Blackboard instructors is dedicated to instructors. Besides the app, you can use the browser on your phone because Blackboard is 100% responsive. So you have all the features that you have on the web on your mobile browser. What kind of files do we can share with students? For instance, can we share Adobe files? Yes. So Blackboard do not have limitations on what kind of files you will put on your course. So for instance, if I have a Adobe Illustrator file, I can put on my course, no problem, no limitations. The only heads up that I will point out is that your student need to have that particular software to see that file. Okay, so yeah, if I send a Illustrator file, your students need to have Illustrator on their computer to open the file. Right? Okay, so grading, and just after grading, we have reporting, which is the question from Andres, I think, yes, Andres Escobar. So let's get to the reporting and analytics. At the course level, for the instructor, we have different kind of statistics or analytics. Any activity, say a test or an assignment, when you create in Blackboard and the students start to interact with this, with that particular object, it will create some reports. in the tests and assignments, we have two analytics. One is student activity, and you'll probably is not very attractive at this point because I don't have students logging in on the course and submitting their work, but you can have analytics from a point of view of a tactical snapshot from that moment. So it will tell you the time that the students take to send the work, from the time they open the file to the time they actually send the assignment, how long taking time, the distribution of grades among your students. So if I have one student grade with a 5, this will be a curve to the grade number 5 over here. And at the bottom, you have a timeline that shows you how long each student took from open the file, save a draft, or send or conclude the assignment. Okay, so pretty much efficiency of the student on that particular assignment. And you have a question analysis. And again, I will not be able to create that report because I don't have the data enough to present some relevant information. But the idea with this test summary is present to you and your instructional design team the discrimination or the efficiency of your tests and your questions. So if you have one, imagine that you have one question on a test that every single student got it right. So, or probably the question is too easy and is probably not assessing if the student is learning something or not, because everybody gets it right. Okay, so the idea here is to present those kind of information to the instructor and say, okay, the question 1 through 1, 3, and 6 from my test is not a discrimination of knowledge. So I can change them. I can see if they are too easy and make it a little bit more challenging for students. Or in the other end, if every single student is getting the question wrong, maybe there is a problem with the question. Maybe the right answer is not set, is not configured properly. Maybe the content that is delivered in the course is not enough for the student to be able to answer correctly that question. So that's the idea of those of this test summary report. And at a discussion level, let me get to one of the discussions. I have some analytics that shows me the average number of words the messaging tool, where I can just send a message to all those people that did not interact with the forum at this point, and see how the engagement of my group is occurring on this particular discussion. Okay. And in addition to that, we can have as well custom reports designed for the institution. So let me get to the tools panel and let me share with you one example. Do not mind the layout of this report, but the idea of the data that is presented. Okay, so I talked a little bit about the competency-based education framework during the presentation, and how to add goals into questions and rubrics and criteria of evaluation. We can build dashboards where you can see the progress of your institution or students on each one of your categories of competencies. Okay, so for instance, I can see in social sciences and humanities, I have around 18% of insufficient progress or performance. And on this particular area, I can click on it and dive into this category of competencies. Okay, I can see the whole package, and don't mind, this is just for demo purposes. There are not real competencies added. Okay, so I can see that the two that present insufficient data are those two. And if I want to see a more deeper dive on that particular competency, I can see where this object is being used and is being evaluated on each course. Each one of these are courses. Okay? So we can, and of course, this is very particular for each institution. That's why we create this on demand, because they have different logics and different levels of let's say, investigation. Okay, but it's just a quick example of how we can present reporting and analytics on the learning objectives. Okay, so team, we are around 10 minutes past our time. I don't want to grab you much longer. If you have the time, I have the time. But at this point, I would like to open the microphone and the chat to further question, comments, or anything that you want to share. Yeah, Sebastian, go ahead.
Yeah, so I want to thank you, Alberto. It has been a great explanation, great demonstration. As Alberto says, we have the time if you want to know more about the Blackboard and on all the features. But also, Chris, I would like to hear your comments about this presentation, and then we can move forward to the Q&A session and any other particular thing that you want to look.
Yeah, I don't have any personal comments. I'm reading through other people's comments, and I know that we have a lot of lower school, and the evening school has lower grade levels as well, and so that's a feature that we need to have. So when you guys get some screenshots, we would appreciate if you send those along.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And just to complement to answer Omar, he asks if there is if it's possible to do a connection to the database to have communication with Blackboard. So we have different ways to communicate with the database. One is exactly this kind of report, okay, and we have external solutions from Blackboard, such as Blackboard data that I put in the chat. So depending on the kind of information that you want to extract, we can have a different approach to provide you the better or the best way for the data that you are looking for. Okay.
Yeah, for sure. I was going to tell you that, Alberto, if we can look at some of Blackboard data in order to reach this question, or it will be a whole other chapter of a Blackboard solution.
We'll take a brief look into that, but I don't know if the team have the time, because we are past our time. I don't want to be disrespectful. I don't know. You tell me, team. If you want to take a look pretty quick, no problem. I can tell you that BB Data basically is a query builder. Okay, and a SQL this is technical. I don't know if you have the people in the room, but you can write a query and we'll present the data that you are asking for. Essentially, is that. Yeah, absolutely. I will send you the recording as well. So if you have questions in the future, I will be available.
Okay, well, thank you everybody for attending. Sebastian and Alberto, thank you for your time. We look forward to any other questions anybody has.
Great. Thank you all very much for your time, comments. Pretty good to talk to you. Keep safe, keep sane, and see you soon.
Thank you, Alberto, and the team. Chris, you would like to connect via mail to understand what are the next steps and how the quotation is going to be made, right? Let's talk in an email, or if you want to have another session between the two of us.
Yeah, we can talk through email later. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, guys.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks,
Have a nice night.
Alberto.
Bye-bye.
Thanks.
No, you are welcome.
Bye.
Bye.
No, ya.